What's going on, everyone? Welcome into the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. My name is Kyle Yates, and I can be found on Twitter at KyleYNFL. For those who are joining from Tags' live stream, welcome in. That was amazing. I think Tags hit like 10,000 people. If he didn't, then he was right up against it. I'm going to do my best to get to as many questions as I can. Understand that with this many people asking questions, like, we're not going to be able to get to all of them, okay? But I will try to fly through them and make sure that you get your start-sit questions answered. And hopefully with other people asking the same questions that you might be dealing with the same issues, that, hey, we can get you squared away and get you ready for week one. Guys, we are an hour away from multiple games being played. I am ready for Scott Hansen to say we are 7 hours of commercial-free football right here. So let me just do this, guys. Let me start in and just talk about the inactives and the ruled out players and injuries, just going through that. Of course, we do have the scroll bar down at the bottom, so you can, if I don't touch on anyone, you will see that down at the bottom of my screen here. But let's just go through this. Miles Sanders obviously did not travel with the team. He is ruled out. So now you are pivoting to Boston Scott, most likely. Just for context here, and I'm sure that we're going to get into it, Boston Scott lands at RB30 in my half PPR rankings. Anytime that I'm talking about rankings, I'm going to be speaking in half PPR, okay? So RB30. That just means that he is a flex play or an RB3 play. He's going to be splitting time with Corey Clement. Okay, Corey Clement is another player that you could consider if you are absolutely desperate. But again, I'm sure we'll get into all this. Miles Sanders is ruled out. Get him out of your lineup. Kenny Golladay, out. Get him out of your lineup. Okay, this is a huge bummer for people who drafted Golladay in the second, third round. He's out for today's game. And now you have Marvin Jones stepping in. You're going to have Damian Amendola, who is expected to play. Just knock that out too. Damian Amendola is expected to play. And then I'm assuming Quintez Cephas is going to be the next guy up. You're not looking at Cephas in any form of fantasy football except deep dynasty leagues, and that's just on your bench. Don't play him. Just watch him because he's a fun football player coming out of Wisconsin, rookie player. Okay, Deebo Samuel, not playing. Okay, get him out of your lineup. Justice Hill wasn't in your lineup to begin with. He's not playing. Dalton Keene wasn't in your lineup. He's not playing either. Denzel Mims, the rookie out of Baylor in the second round for the New York Jets, he is not playing either. So this bumps up Brashad Perryman. But again, this is a tough matchup. Brashad Perryman is going to draw Tre'Davious White in coverage. And guess what? Tre'Davious White is going to win that matchup. LaMichael Pirine, again, a backup running back in New York. You weren't playing him, but he's out. Alshon Jeffrey, of course, was always expected to be out. He's officially out. Expected to play Mike Evans. Okay, so Mike Evans sent fantasy managers into a panic this week when his hamstring flared up and he did not practice and then was considered doubtful. And now he's bounced back to he's expected to play. The way that I'm interpreting this is that he's going to be out there as a decoy. This is not a player that I want to roll out in my starting lineup whatsoever. Okay, so Mike Evans can, of course, make his fantasy day on one big play downfield, and maybe he gets targeted in the red zone and converts it. But the percentage chance of him actually doing that versus comparative to the snap counts that he's most likely going to play, it's just not a situation that I want to roll with. I think you have better options, okay? But Mike Evans is expected to play. David Montgomery is expected to play after that groin injury scare that he had in practice a couple weeks ago. He, based on everything that we saw in, leading up to the season, Chicago didn't sign another running back. And so this indicated to me that actually Montgomery might play. And he is suiting up against this Detroit Lions defense. I actually think you can roll out Montgomery as a low-end RB2 flex option. For those who drafted Montgomery super late, because of this injury scare and people were just off of him, if you got him in the 7th round or 8th round or whatever, I saw someone on Twitter said they got him in the 13th round of the draft. What the heck? Congratulations, you just won your draft because you got a running back who is going to get an insane amount of carries as potentially your RB4. So plug him into your flex. This is a great matchup for him. I'm excited for him this game. Cordell Patterson is expected to play, but he's not a fantasy relevant player. Damian Amendola, I cannot say his last name. Goodness. He is expected to play as well, but really shouldn't be someone that you're considering outside of deep leagues and a flex for full PPR. Mike Williams is expected to play, the Los Angeles Chargers wide receiver. Do not consider playing him. He is coming back from this way too early. This is not a player that I want to consider. He's going to be out there because they absolutely need him. It was either going to be Jalen Guyton or KJ Hill as the wide receivers that would be lining up alongside Keenan Allen. Nope, you need Mike Williams on the field. The Chargers do, but he's not someone that I want to consider for fantasy football. And then N'Keal Harry, the New England Patriots wide receiver, is expected to play. Based on where you were drafting Harry, I do not think that you need to start him. He's someone that I want to wait and see what he looks like. What is his connection with Cam Newton? Is it anything substantial? That's something that I just want to take a wait and see approach on N'Keal Harry versus rolling him into my lineup. And then game time decisions, Brandon Ayuk and Philip Dorsett. Philip Dorsett actually was just ruled out. So Philip Dorsett wasn't someone that you were considering either. And then Brandon Ayuk is a player that I just want to avoid all 49ers wide receivers if I can. And based on where you drafted Ayuk, which was in like the 12th or 13th round, on the for the most part, then he is someone that you can avoid. Let him sit on your bench. The potential, of him, or the percentage chance of him actually converting real fantasy points, and being a contributor for your lineup isn't anything substantial. I'm willing to look elsewhere. Okay, guys, let's get into some questions. Oh, additionally, Dede Westbrook, officially inactive. So healthy inactive, which is not good. Apparently, all the reports of him being third on that depth chart, a third team player on that depth chart were real. So this is concerning. As a Dede Westbrook fan, I want him to be traded somewhere. Get him out of Jacksonville. Get him to an offense that will actually utilize his skills because he still can play. All right, we've got questions. Here we go. Half PPR in the flex. Nick Chubb, Anthony Miller, or Antonio Gibson. Even though I don't love the matchup for Nick Chubb, I think you still do have to roll with him because I have him RB17 in my rankings right now. This is still a guy who is an RB2, and if you're starting him in the flex, he always has the opportunity to score. And so get him into your lineup, especially in the flex there. I like that over the other two options, Anthony Miller and Antonio Gibson. Boston Scott or Deante Johnson. I'm going to go with Deante Johnson there off the top of my head. I love this matchup for him, especially when you factor in that Ben Roethlisberger is coming back. This is a very easy defense to throw against. This is just a matchup that Deontay Johnson should go off, and especially when you factor in that Boston Scott, again, like I said, he lands at RB30 in my rankings, and he's going to be splitting the workload here. So, and against a very good defensive line, where now you have Lane Johnson, the right tackle of the Philadelphia Eagles, out, and Nate Herbig, I think is how you pronounce his last name. He was a 2019 undrafted free agent. He's starting at right guard. So now you have this insane defensive line matching up against these guys from Philadelphia's offensive line. It's not something that I'm really super crazy about starting. So just temper expectations with Boston Scott. Deontay Johnson has the potential to go off in this matchup. TJ Hawkinson or Austin Hooper in half PPR. I'm going to go with Austin Hooper. We're looking at Jarvis Landry. He is going to be suiting up, but he said that his role may be limited in this game. I bumped Landry down my rankings, and when you look at the depth behind them on this depth chart, it's Rashard Higgins and Donovan Peoples-Jones, a sixth rounder from Michigan in this last draft. So the ball has to go somewhere. And especially when you're talking about an offense that is as high-powered as Baltimore, Cleveland's going to have to get away from running the ball and eventually throw the ball. And you have to look at where the targets are going to go. It's going to go OBJ, and then it's going to be Austin Hooper. So especially when you factor in, again, with TJ Hawkinson and the matchup against Chicago, I'm willing to go Austin Hooper there. Half PPR, need to choose between Kareem Hunt, James Robinson, and Jordan Howard. Kareem Hunt is your answer there. James Robinson is a stash player at best. Again, this is just an offense that we haven't even seen James Robinson play on the field. He's an undrafted free agent, guys. So let's just temper expectations, put him on your bench. Do not start him anywhere. Even though he could get 10 to 12 touches, we don't know what that's going to look like. And especially on a team that should be trailing in this matchup, I want to start Kareem Hunt here. I do like Jordan Howard in this matchup because I do think that the New England Patriots defense is not anything like it was last year, especially when you had so many players opt out. You had, some key injuries. So Jordan Howard is someone that I am willing to roll out, but not above Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt should get the passing down work here, and especially, like I said, when you factor in that Jarvis Landry, his role may be limited in this matchup. Daniel Jones or Gardner Minshew. Get Daniel Jones out of your starting lineup. Don't love this matchup against Pittsburgh. He should turn the ball over a couple times. This is just not someone that I'm willing to start. And I've talked about it on the podcast before. Daniel Jones, again, brutal start to this schedule. Okay, this is just not a guy that I want to consider at all. Gardner Minshew has the potential to throw 40 passes in this game. And if that's the case, then he is going to be fantasy relevant. and could squeak into the top 12 at the position. I'm going to take a quick break here, guys, between answering questions, and make sure to remind you guys to subscribe to this YouTube channel. This helps us out in an immense way. So please hit that subscribe button, hit the like button on this video, helps us out a ton. And remember that you can find and follow me on Twitter at KyleY NFL. All right, Jonathan Taylor or David Montgomery? Jonathan Taylor here, guys. I think David Montgomery is tempting again in this matchup, but Jonathan Taylor has the potential to see 15 carries in this game against a Jacksonville defense that is not anything of note, and he could easily average around 5 yards per carry, maybe even more, behind this offensive line. So Jonathan Taylor, even though he should be splitting carries with Marlon Mack, I love him in this matchup because I think they're going to go up big, and they'll need to run the ball. Will Kareem Hunt split touches with Nick Chubb? Yes. That was always the concern with Nick Chubb and why I was hesitant to be drafting him as a top 10 running back. The extension did nothing for me to move Nick Chubb, maybe in Dynasty, right? It maybe moved him down a little bit. But when we're talking about Kareem Hunt as the pass-catching back in this backfield, that takes Chubb off the field. So from Cleveland's perspective, they want to run the ball 30 times a game, 30 plus times a game with Kevin Stefanski coming in. So there is enough work for Nick Chubb to be relevant, but not to be a top 5 option every single week when you do have a back as talented as Kareem Hunt alongside him. So Kareem Hunt here will absolutely split touches. He's someone that I have as a top 24 option at the running back position this week. So yeah, he will split touches. Half PPR, pick one. Laviska Shenault, Jalen Reagor, or Paris Campbell. Jalen Reagor is going to play. This is crazy. I should have mentioned him with the injuries. It is crazy that he's coming back this early. You should not be considering Jalen Reagor anywhere. Okay, so I'm just going to say that right now. He has the potential he has the speed. Let me just say this, and especially in this matchup, he has the potential to take one pass, take it for 50 yards and a touchdown. But when you look at it, what are the percentage chances of a rookie wide receiver who is coming in with limited range of motion? He is going to be wearing a brace on his shoulder that he dislocated a couple weeks ago. What are the chances that he comes in after missing 2 weeks of training camp and sees 6+ targets to the point that he is fantasy relevant? Desean Jackson is the wide receiver that you want to play in this matchup. Jalen Reagor should be on your bench. Laviska Shenault, apparently with D.D. Westbrook, he's going to be the D.D. Westbrook being inactive. Shenault's going to be the starting slot receiver. So in a matchup where you're looking at, like I said, with Gardner Minshew, they're going to have to be throwing the ball a ton. Shenault could see some targets in this matchup. And then on the other side of the ball, how much is Indianapolis going to have to throw? So I actually might be willing to go with Laviska Shenault, a rookie wide receiver, out of these three, when factoring in these three options of Laviska Shenault, Jalen Reagor, and Paris Campbell. Jonnu Smith or Jared Cook. With Jared Cook in a shootout, you were always hoping, when you were drafting Jared Cook as a top 10 option, the mindset with that was that he has to score a touchdown for him to return fantasy value. The target share is not going to be there for Jared Cook to be a solid option every single week. In this matchup, where New Orleans, this is going to be a shootout game. This is one of the games that I am circling. I'm so excited to watch this game of New Orleans Saints and Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Drew Brees, Tom Brady. So excited. This could easily hit the Vegas over-under. So I'm very, very excited to see Jared Cook on this and what his target share looks like. If you want to roll the dice and you say that I do not feel confident in starting Jonnu Smith yet, my whole thing, obviously I'm a Jonnu Smith guy, right? I've talked him up all offseason. If you want to wait and see and you have Jared Cook as an option, Jared Cook has more of a potential to boom in this matchup because he can score. New Orleans is going to have to throw the ball. They're going to have to score. Again, we're talking about a high over-under. When you look at Tennessee and Denver, that's not going to be a high-scoring affair. So Jonnu Smith can absolutely do it on the back of 6 touchdowns or 6 touchdowns. That would be nice. 6 targets, and then with him, his after-the-catch ability, he can absolutely make his day with that. It all depends on how you want to roll at the tight end position. Do you want to wait and see on Jonnu Smith? Or do you want to roll the dice with a touchdown option in Jared Cook? So I'll let you pick out of that. I personally am going Jonnu Smith, but that's just because I love Jonnu Smith. Okay, Jamison Crowder, Taylor, I'm assuming that's Jonathan Taylor, and Darius Slayton flex in a full PPR. In a full PPR, it's Jamison Crowder. Even though Jonathan Taylor absolutely has a potential to, like I said, go off in this matchup, 15 carries, 5 yards per carry, and multiple scores, whatever. Jamison Crowder in a full PPR especially for a flex option. You can't beat that. Darius Slayton, I don't want to start him in this matchup. Standard scoring, which two to start? Mark Ingram, Boston Scott, or Zach Ertz? Zach Ertz always belongs in your starting lineup. That he should never come off the, except for bye weeks, come off the field. You like what I did there? Mark Ingram will be the other one that I will roll with there. Again, Boston Scott at RB30 in my rankings. I have Ingram at RB21, I believe. So he has the potential, again, to score in this matchup, Mark Ingram. I love him. So I will roll with Zach Ertz and Mark Ingram there. Boston Scott can remain on my bench, especially in standard scoring. Boston Scott's going to get his value in full PPR. Stafford or Tannehill in a 4-point passing touchdown. I will go with, what did my rankings say? Hold on, guys. Tannehill is the one that I immediately want to answer there because I do not love this matchup for Matthew Stafford. I will go with Tannehill. I have Tannehill at quarterback 17 in my rankings this week. I have Matthew Stafford at 22. I'm not excited about Stafford in this matchup, especially when you factor in that he has lost Kenny Golladay. I will roll with Ryan Tannehill against a defense that has Bradley Chubb coming off of his injury, shouldn't be up to full speed, and then they just lost Von Miller, which is a huge blow to this defense. James Robinson or Tyler Boyd. Goodness gracious, guys, it's Tyler Boyd. That's not even close. What do you think about the weather in San Francisco? How do you think the air quality is going to affect who gets the ball? This is a huge concern. So if you haven't heard anything, the air quality index in San Francisco, because of all the fires going on, which is just terrible, is causing concerns. You have Tevin Coleman. They are going to be playing the game. That game actually being postponed was a concern. Now you have players like Tevin Coleman who are saying that I actually might sit out this game. I think they would forfeit their game check and things like that, but they actually might sit out this game because it's just not going to be safe. So, or it could not be safe, right? I think they said that if the air quality index is over 200, then they will postpone the game. And it's underneath that, but it's at like 175 was the last thing that I saw. So it's right there. This is, as far as, let me just bounce back. As far as the weather and that affecting who gets the ball, I really don't think that that's going to factor in too much. It's not like this is 50 mile per hour winds. It's not like this is, torrential downpour. So as far as it affecting who gets the ball, I don't think we need to read into it that much. To begin with the San Francisco 49ers wide receivers, I'm not starting any of them. Personally, I talked about that with Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel. I mean, Trent Taylor, maybe if you're super desperate, but we just don't know who the heck is going to be starting, right? I think Kendrick Bourne, Richie James, I think they're all just going to rotate. As far as the running back position, you have Raheem Mostert, and then you have Tevin Coleman if he does play, Jerick McKinnon. It's just a mess. So I'm tempering expectations with all players in this matchup except for DeAndre Hopkins. I still think DeAndre Hopkins is a smash auto start. I don't think we need to read too far into that with the weather. Breaking news, Zach Ertz and general manager Howie Roseman have reportedly had a heated discussion over the contract extension that Ertz desires. Ertz was on NFL Network earlier this week talking about how he is not happy with his contract situation. He has a potential out. Tags and I were looking into this earlier this week. He has a potential out in his contract next year, but it's for like $7 million in dead cap. So the concern would be, why would Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles exercise that option when you can keep a top-end tight end in Zach Ertz, but then you would, $7 million in dead cap? That doesn't make much sense. So the concern is Dallas Goedert his contract is up next year or at the end of this year. I can't remember off the top of my head. He was a 2017 draft pick, so next year. So Zach Ertz is he's 30 years old now. He's looking for one final contract. He's looking for that extension to make sure that he doesn't hit that age where his production just falls off and he loses his, financial security. So he's exercising his leverage in this. Howie Roseman is standing firm saying that we've got you under contract for another year, maybe even 2 years if we keep you, right? Why would we extend you? So right now, as far as the fantasy impact, I'm not reading too much into it. They can have this conversation on the back end. I'm sure that they tweak the money. They do some money with like signing bonuses. They move that money around to make sure Zach Ertz is happy. But you may get an even more motivated Zach Ertz on the field. Do I bench Amari Cooper this week against Ramsey? Okay, so I talked about this on the Friday podcast. I talked about this on maybe even the Wednesday podcast or Tuesday, whatever. All these days are running together with the start-sit show. Amari Cooper against Jalen Ramsey. I am concerned, and I'm tempering expectations with Amari Cooper with Jalen Ramsey shadowing him. Okay, so when you look at the depth at the cornerback position on the St. Louis Rams, Los Angeles Rams, you're looking at Jalen Ramsey, and then it's a bunch of unknowns. These guys the depth is not there with this Rams defense in general. You have Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, and then it gets scary after that when you look at their depth chart. So if Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator, and Mike McCarthy, the head coach, are smart, they will look at these other options and say, we can let Amari Cooper let Jalen Ramsey negate Amari Cooper, and we can exploit these other matchups with Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, and Blake Jarwin. I'm expecting big days from Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, and Blake Jarwin. Amari Cooper lands at our wide receiver 32, I think, in my rankings off the top of my head. So he is still startable, but you have to temper expectations. If you have other elite options at the wide receiver position, right, and going back to the question, do I bench Amari Cooper this week against Ramsey? It all depends on who you have. If you're going to be rolling out James Robinson in place of Amari Cooper, no, you start Amari Cooper because Amari Cooper always has the potential to score. If he scores a touchdown, you're going to be fine. You're going to be happy that you started him. But you have to temper expectations. That's why I have him down at wide receiver 32 in my rankings. Deante Johnson or Julian Edelman as my wide receiver 3 in a standard league. Especially in a standard league, I'm going Deontay Johnson. I talked about him earlier. I love his opportunity this week. Julian Edelman gets his value in any form of PPR. And so, especially now when you factor in Cam Newton coming in, I just want to see what this offense looks like. I do have Julian Edelman as a back-end wide receiver 3. I have Deontay Johnson at wide receiver 30 in my rankings, somewhere around there, as a mid-range. Sorry, I have Deonte Johnson at wide receiver 26 in my ranking, guys. So that just kind of explains how high I am on him this week. Drink break. Russell Wilson or Dak Prescott. First off, congratulations that you have both of those quarterbacks on your roster and you have to make that decision. Those are two elite options this week. I literally have Dak at quarterback 3 and I have Russell Wilson at quarterback 5. In a potential shootout, like Sunday Night Football this week, guys, is going to be so much fun to watch because it could easily hit the Vegas over-under. This game could turn out into an absolute shootout. I'm super excited to watch this game. But then Atlanta and Seattle could also turn into a shootout matchup. So I will go Dak there just because I think his blow-up potential is there. Russell Wilson, though, not far behind him. Ronald Jones or James Robinson half PPR. Okay, I will still go Ronald Jones here. I don't love the matchup against the Saints defense, and especially when you factor in Leonard Fournette should get some play in this game too. They've said that Ronald Jones is the clear guy in this backfield. We have to see that play out first, though. So I think you can roll Ronald Jones out as a flex option, low-end RB3. James Robinson, I don't have anywhere close to that range. Again, I'm looking to sit James Robinson everywhere I can unless I absolutely have to. So I will start Ronald Jones here. Jonathan Taylor versus Boston Scott in full PPR. That's closer, but I'm still going to go JT. Full PPR start 2, Terry McLaurin, Tyler Lockett, Kenyon Drake, and DJ Chark. Man, if that's in a flex spot where you don't have to worry about the position value in a full PPR too, I'm going to go DJ Chark as my lock there. I want him. Tyler Lockett is super high in my rankings too this week. I love his opportunity. Terry McLaurin, the concern here is that Darius Slay shadows him. If Darius Slay shadows Terry McLaurin, because if Jim Schwartz is smart, he'll say, look at the other options that can beat us. Is it Steven Sims? Is it Dontrell Inman? Is it Antonio Gandy-Golden, who's had problems getting up to speed in camp? No, it's Terry McLaurin. Could be the reason why Washington actually wins this game. Also, by the way, Bryce Love was a healthy scratch, just off the top of my head. So if Jim Schwartz is smart, he's going to say, have Darius Slay shadow Terry McLaurin, shut him down. Darius Slay is one of the most underrated corners. He was buried in Detroit. No one talked about him. He's now on the national stage with Philadelphia. I think he's going to insert himself into the conversation of one of the top cornerbacks in the NFL. So if they're smart, they just have Darius Slay shadow Terry McLaurin all game long. McLaurin doesn't come with huge upside. I think he'll still be safe from a target volume perspective because, again, where are the targets going to go? So I will go personally with DJ Chark and Tyler Lockett. Kenyon Drake is a mid-range RB2 for me this week against that defensive line that San Francisco is deploying. So DJ Chark, again, talk about Gardner Minshew throwing the ball 40 plus times, right? I want a piece of that action. And then Tyler Lockett in a potential shootout. I love him in this game. Start 1, Hollywood Brown versus A.J. Brown in PPR. It's not close. It's A.J. Brown. Hollywood Brown should get Denzel Ward treatment, and they should be able to just run the ball all over whatever team they're facing. Cleveland, thank you. Full PPR, flex, Nick Chubb or Boston Scott. It's Nick Chubb. Marlon Mack, David Montgomery, or Cam Akers in half PPR. Darrell Henderson is playing in this matchup, which I talked about on the Friday podcast, saying that if Darrell Henderson does play, I'm tempering expectations for Cam Akers. I still think you can roll him out as a flex. Marlon Mack is going to be splitting touches with Jonathan Taylor. I think once you put Marlon Mack and JT on the field at the same time, JT is easily going to take over this matchup pretty quickly here. So I want to roll out Jonathan Taylor. Of course, Marlon Mack is a flex option at best for me. David Montgomery in this matchup does land at RB. Pulling this up, guys, really quick. David Montgomery at RB 21 in my rankings in this matchup, sandwiched in between Mark Ingram at RB 20 and then Melvin Gordon at RB 22. So I will roll out David Montgomery. Full PPR, pick 2. Terry McLaurin, I already talked about Terry. DK Metcalf, CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy, or Marvin Jones. I am probably going to go. Cortland Sutton is a game time decision, is the last that I heard for him. He fell on his shoulder in practice this week. He observed practice yesterday. That doesn't sound good for his outlook for Monday. I'm concerned there, so I will. Jeudy does get a bump, but I don't think to the point that DK or Marvin, that he will outperform DK Metcalf or Marvin Jones. I'm going to roll out those two. DK Metcalf and Marvin Jones if I have those choices. In your flex, Chris Conley, Robbie Anderson, or JJ Arcega-Whiteside. It's Robbie Anderson. That's not even close. I love Anderson in this. This game should be a sneaky shootout game. Carolina and Las Vegas. Robbie Anderson. Carolina's going to have to throw the ball. Robbie Anderson is the number 2 wide receiver on this team reportedly. I want Robbie Anderson in my flex spot. It's a huge blow-up performance waiting to happen. Le'Veon Bell or Keenan Allen in a full PPR flex. I'm going to go Keenan Allen here. Lev Bell should see significant work as well, but Keenan Allen against this defense, and considering the fact that I mentioned the wide receivers that he's going to be playing with before, or with Mike Williams playing, but I think he's out there as a decoy. Jalen Guyton from North Texas, and a second-year wide receiver. And then KJ Hill, a rookie wide receiver out of Ohio State. I loved Hill coming out, but he's more of a slot receiver. He's not getting onto the field before Keenan Allen, or unless something happens to Keenan Allen, So I will roll with Keenan Allen here in a full PPR as my flex option. I'm going to pause here for a second, guys, just to remind you, hit the subscribe button on this for our YouTube channel here. Make sure that you can stay up to date with all of our future content and the videos that we are delivering. We appreciate the support. Hit the like button on this video, and then again, you can find and follow me on Twitter at Kyle Y NFL. For those who are just tuning in, injuries that we talked about, the injuries that are happening, the inactives earlier on in the live stream here, you will see down below the week 1 injuries as a scroll bar. So if you are just tuning in, you just got home from work, church, whatever, you're sitting down, you're ready to make sure your lineup is fully set, you will see those week 1 injuries scroll by just to make sure that you don't play a player who is inactive. All right, let's keep going here. Big Ben Roethlisberger or Carson Wentz as your quarterback. I'm going to go Big Ben here, guys, even though I think James Conner has top 5 potential with how much work he can get on the ground in this game, because looking at the Giants' run defense, I still think Big Ben is going to be fine. The concern with Big Ben is season long, right? And looking at him, his season long outlook, saying, will the elbow hold up? Week 1, right out of the gate, all indications are that he's fully healthy, that everything is fine. So as long as Big Ben is fully healthy and until we see the decline, I'm fine rolling him out. Carson Wentz, I talked about the offensive line. You have Lane Johnson out at right tackle, Nate Herbig in at, again, forgive me if I'm pronouncing his last name wrong, he's at right guard. And you have Jack Driscoll out of Auburn stepping in at right tackle there in place of Lane Johnson. That's a downgrade for this offensive line. Huge concerns there. So, and again, when you factor in that they lost Brandon Brooks, you have Jason Peters back at 38 years old at left tackle. This is not the offensive line that it once was. I'm concerned here. So I still think Wentz is a back-end QB1. I have Wentz at QB12 in my rankings. Big Ben at QB10. I like Ben this week. Cortland Sutton. He's not expected to play, so that's just going to answer that question right now. I'm avoiding him, especially when you factor in that it's a Monday night game. You will not get clarity on that. So Cortland Sutton, Antonio Gibson, or Jamison Crowder. And the follow-up question to that, does Sutton play? Hang on just a second. Talking this much is draining, guys. I know Tags can talk for 2 hours by himself, but this is draining. Okay, here we go. Cortland Sutton, Antonio Gibson, or Jamison Crowder. The format matters here. So if it is a standard format, I will probably roll with Antonio Gibson. But again, this Philadelphia defense is a stout unit. I'm tempering expectations there. I have Gibson at RB29 in my rankings. Or Jamison Crowder. If it is a full PPR, then I'm rolling with Crowder. Mark Ingram, Jamison Crowder, or Anthony Miller in the flex. Again, format matters here. Anthony Miller is going to present a safe floor, and especially when you factor in that Jeff Okudah, the Detroit Lions' number 3 overall pick in the 2020 NFL Draft, is not active this game. So the Lions' corners that they have now, they're not going to be able to keep up. Desmond Trufant is the second corner there, so he should line up against Allen Robinson, but Robinson can easily exploit that matchup. Then you're looking at Justin Coleman, who's a fine corner. He's going to be lining up on Anthony Miller if he moves into the slot. So Miller, I like him. He comes with a safe floor this week, but huge blow-up upside. The last time that Miller played the Lions, 13 targets, 9 receptions, 140 yards. Even though it is Trubisky, it feels gross. I am willing to roll with Anthony Miller. If it's half PPR, if it's a full PPR, I'm willing to go Crowder. And then if it's a standard, I'm willing to go Ingram. Okay, there we go. Answered all 3 formats. Woohoo! Okay, Jamison Crowder or Kareem Hunt, half PPR flex. Kareem Hunt here. I think that in a full PPR, Crowder can move up into the wide receiver 25 range, especially in a full PPR. But Hunt, I have at RB23 and should see some significant work if Jarvis Landry's role is limited, like he says. Full PPR, full PPR, wide receiver 3 spot, Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, or John Brown. I am willing to go Henry Ruggs here. Again, I talked about Robbie Anderson and his, this being a potential shootout matchup. I want the pieces in this game, and Ruggs lined up against these Carolina corners, Ruggs can absolutely just go off in this matchup. So if you need at your wide receiver 3 spot stability, let's say that you have some, I don't even know what the example would be. Jeudy comes with a stability if Cortland Sutton plays, but again, he's going up against some stout corners here against Tennessee. Ruggs, I think, is going to be my answer no matter what, now that I talk that through. Henry Ruggs has huge blow-up potential this week. I love him. Jonathan Taylor or Mark Ingram in a standard league. I will go with Mark Ingram here. I think that is super close. Mark Ingram comes with more of a guaranteed role. J.K. Dobbins should factor in, but it's not going to be anything substantial. Jonathan Taylor has to split that backfield with Nyheim Hines and Marlon Mack. So even though I'm talked about Jonathan Taylor several times, that he has the blow-up potential, there is also a chance that Frank Reich says we want to lean in on our veteran and give him the chance, and Jonathan Taylor sees 8 touches. I'm not projecting that in any way. So, and the percentage chance of that happening is very minimal. But Mark Ingram, we know who he is. We know his role. I don't think Dobbins, week 1, right out of the gate, is going to change that much. I'm willing to go with Mark Ingram there in a standard format. Half PPR in your flex, Deante Johnson versus McLaurin. I'm still going to go Terry McLaurin here. That's the range, right? That's the line where I talk about Deontay Johnson. I've been hyping him up this entire live stream and talking about him, saying that I think he has the potential to go off in this matchup. But again, wide receiver 26 in my rankings. I have McLaurin at wide receiver 17. I have him at wide receiver 17. So again, McLaurin has to deal with Darius Slay. But the target volume, because you have to say where else do the targets go, McLaurin should be safe. So Deante Johnson, it depends on what you need. Do you need safety at that wide receiver 2 spot or whatever, wide receiver 3? Then McLaurin is probably the one that you want to go with. Deante Johnson has the potential to blow up in this matchup. So, especially in a flex, I will answer that. Deante Johnson has the blow-up performance potential. Joe Burrow or Matthew Stafford, both facing really, really stout defenses. So I'm not super excited about either of these. If I have to choose, I'm looking at my rankings right now. I have Joe Burrow at 24, and I have Matthew Stafford at 22. So just to give you context there, I'm not super excited about either of these. I would be looking to look at the other side of Joe Burrow's matchup here and Tyrod Taylor. If Tyrod Taylor is still there on your waiver wire, I would be fine playing Tyrod Taylor over Joe Burrow or Matthew Stafford. Where do I have Jimmy Garoppolo this week? It's not great. Quarterback 25. Again, uncertainty with the 49ers wide receivers. course, you have George Kittle. Could see 20 targets in this game. I'm exaggerating slightly, but I don't think there's going to be enough passing volume here to sustain. And again, when you're looking at the wide receiver options that he has healthy, Jimmy G could throw the ball 20 times this game, and it's just not going to be enough. Desean Jackson or Keenan Allen in a standard format. Desean Jackson. Kendall Fuller lists the corner for the Washington football team, listed as inactive. So Desean Jackson is going to be lining up against Ronald Darby. And Jackson should go off. He has top 10 potential this week. I love Jackson. Emanuel Sanders or the Lazard, Alan Lazard in full PPR. I'm not excited about either one of these guys. So Emanuel Sanders, again, you're talking about the potential shootout here with New Orleans and Tampa Bay. Sanders is a solid bet to score a touchdown. That's essentially what it comes down to when you're looking at guys in this range. Emanuel Sanders or Alan Lazard. Which one's going to score the touchdown? Because both of these guys are wide receiver 4s, wide receiver 5s on your fantasy roster, most likely. So if you are compensating, let's put this into context. If you're compensating for Kenny Golladay going out or Mike Evans, you drafted either of those guys, maybe even both, then you have to play the odds of which one's going to get the touchdown. In a matchup with Green Bay and Minnesota, I think Devontae Adams is going to get all the targets that he can handle in this matchup. Lazard, it's not going to be a high-scoring matchup. So I'm more willing to side with Vegas in this one and say the Saints versus Tampa Bay is going to be a high-scoring affair. I'm willing to roll out Emmanuel Sanders over Alan Lazard there, especially in the context that I lost Kenny Golladay or Mike Evans, and I need a touchdown to be able to stay competitive in this matchup. Marvin Jones or Odell Beckham, I'm still willing to roll out OBJ there, especially when we talk about Jarvis Landry and his role potentially being limited. Odell should be fine from a target volume perspective. A.J. Brown or Jonathan Taylor in your flex as a full PPR, that's A.J. Brown. I have A.J. Brown at wide receiver 13, ? Loading. A.J. Brown at wide receiver 12. So he's going to be fine from a target volume perspective. He doesn't come with the questions that Jonathan Taylor does. Dan Harris or Mike Tagliere in a flex of half PPR. If we're talking about their actual athletic prowess, give me Mike Tagliere. Yeah, that's not close. Jamison Crowder, Tyler Boyd, or CeeDee Lamb in a full PPR format. Tyler Boyd? That's close, guys. It's between Jamison Crowder or Tyler Boyd for me. It's super close. I think Boyd has more upside where he has the potential to score. So it depends on what you need. Do you need the upside play where Boyd should be fine from a target volume perspective? He should see his 6 to 8 targets, whatever, but then has the potential to score on top of that. Jamison Crowder could see 11 targets in this game, reel in 8 of them for 80 yards. So you should be fine there. So it just depends on, do you need the safety at the position or do you need that upside play? If the matchup that you're going up against says that you're going to trail, the projections, then I would go with Tyler Boyd there. Half PPR, Rob Gronkowski or Evan Ingram. It's Evan Ingram for me, but I'm not super excited about either one of them. Gronk, we don't know what his involvement in this offense looks like. As far as a snap count perspective, right out of the gate, and we had rumors, we got word from, I believe it was Bruce Arians himself a few weeks ago saying that Gronk is most likely going to be third on this Tampa Bay Buccaneers depth chart, at the tight end position from a snap count perspective. You're going to see O.J. Howard. You're going to see Cameron Brate. Rob Gronkowski is a touchdown or bust option. I think you will see Gronk out there in red zone packages. That's probably only where he's going to be utilized this season as he continues to get his body back up to, condition, to NFL conditioning. But Ingram in this matchup against Pittsburgh, I talked about not being excited about Daniel Jones. The targets have to go somewhere, though. So Ingram is the one that I would lean on over Gronk there. Gronk is a touchdown or bust option this week. I'd be looking to go elsewhere at the tight end position. DK Metcalf or Amari Cooper. I'm rolling out DK Metcalf in a potential shootout game. I already talked about Amari Cooper and Jalen Ramsey shadowing him, that I am tempering expectations. Start 3.5 PPR. Joe Mixon, Josh Jacobs, Chris Carson, Jonathan Taylor, Mark Ingram, Mostert, or Hunt. Goodness gracious, what a question. Okay, start 3.5 PPR. Joe Mixon, automatically in my lineup. Josh Jacobs, automatically in my lineup. And then it's between Chris Carson, Jonathan Taylor, Mark Ingram, Raheem Mostert, or Hunt. I'm going to eliminate Raheem Mostert. I'm going to go the first three that you mentioned. I'm going to go Joe Mixon, Josh Jacobs, and Chris Carson. As long as Chris Carson's healthy and you have Carlos Hyde behind him. I know there was talk about rolling with the hot hand from Pete Carroll with Carlos Hyde and Chris Carson. I'm not buying into that. I'm going to roll with Chris Carson here. I like him in this matchup. Scoring upside galore. Half PPR, Julian Edelman or Michael Gallup in the flex. Michael Gallup has huge blow-up performance potential this week. I have Michael Gallup at wide receiver 20 in my rankings, guys. I love him this week. Love his matchup. I think he can absolutely go off in a high-scoring matchup with Julian Edelman. Comes with safety as a wide receiver 3 in full PPR, but doesn't come with huge upside. So Michael Gallup is the play here. Corey Clement or Jordan Howard in full PPR flex. I'm going to go with Jordan Howard here. Corey Clement is a fine football player, but he's not Jordan Howard. And Jordan Howard is criminally underrated from a football fan's perspective. Jordan Howard is absolutely underrated. So in this matchup, I'm tempering expectations. I'm not predicting anything like a top 24 finish. I think he's a RB3 at best. Corey Clement I have as an RB4 flex option, so I will roll out Jordan Howard. All right, I'm waiting for some more questions to come in from my producer here. Looking at how many people are watching, 7,000 people watching right now, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully we are getting you educated on your start-sit decisions here for this matchup, or for this week. Again, we're 17 minutes away from multiple games being played. If you watch NFL Red Zone, this is your Christmas because you have so many matchups going on. I can't wait to jump off here and sit down and watch some football. Just as a reminder, subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're watching this video, we appreciate the support. Make sure that you continue that support by hitting the subscribe button. We greatly appreciate that. Like this video as well. And then again, just as a reminder, you can find and follow me on Twitter at Kyle Y NFL. I will mention again, just for those who are now jumping in, that we do have the week 1 injuries rolling down at the bottom of this screen, so you can see those go by to make sure that you do not start any of these guys, especially mentioning an honorable mention here, D.D. Westbrook as a healthy and active. If you were relying on him for any reason in a deep, dynasty league or anything like that, make sure that you get him out of your starting roster. Okay, got some more questions that came in. Devontae Parker or Anthony Miller in full PPR. This is a good question. Devontae Parker is officially active for this game. There were question marks about, I think it was a hamstring injury, like is he going to play? Just one second. Voice is starting to go. Devontae Parker. Question marks as far as his involvement in this game plan and if he was even going to be active. Now you look at, he is active, but he gets Stephon Gilmore. And Stephon Gilmore, reigning Defensive Player of the Year corner for New England. Yes, Parker played really, really well against him previously. So I think you just have to temper expectations here with Devontae Parker that Miami could look towards Preston Williams a lot more. They could look towards Mike Gesicki a lot more and just kind of let Devontae Parker ease his way back into this lineup and let Stephon Gilmore eliminate him from the matchup. So Devontae Parker and Anthony Miller are both being rolled out for me as wide receiver 3 options. I will answer as far as my specific rankings. I have Devontae Parker at wide receiver 35. I have Anthony Miller at wide receiver 28. Okay, so I like Miller a little bit more in this matchup. Devontae Parker, he doesn't come with the questions that Devontae Parker does. Can Parker absolutely finish above Anthony Miller? Sure, but you have to play the percentage chances of that actually happening, and I like Miller's chances more. Half PPR, Boston Scott, Odell Beckham, or Antonio Gibson. I'm rolling out Beckham here. Scott and Gibson, of course, come with huge question marks as far as what their actual role will be versus the matchup with Gibson. So Beckham should be heavily targeted in this matchup with Jarvis Landry and his role being limited. So I will roll with Beckham there. Start your studs, right? We talk about that all the time. Robert Woods or DK Metcalf. I'm rolling with Robert Woods, guys. I talked about Robert Woods as a top 10 receiver from a season-long perspective. Talked about him all offseason. I love Robert Woods in this matchup, especially, again, I've talked about, like, smash the over-under, right? Smash the over on this game for Dallas and Los Angeles on Sunday Night Football. I cannot wait to watch this game. DK Metcalf, of course, should finish as a wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside, but I like leaning on the target volume of Robert Woods here a little bit more. Noah Fant or Kerryon Johnson in your flex in a full PPR. I don't want to start any of the Lions running backs, honestly. With DeAndre Swift not carrying an injury designation into this matchup, he could finish as a fine flex option as far as Swift. But then you do have Adrian Peterson factoring in. You do have Kerryon Johnson factoring in. This is a backfield that I want to see how it plays out. And I just want to take a wait-and-see approach. I know that you might not have the ability to do that, but I want to see the split count, the carry splits here. I want to see how they divvy up the workload here. Noah Fant is a back-end tight end 1 for me. I'm not crazy about starting a tight end over a running back, but if Cortland Sutton does sit like I expect him to, then Noah Fant could see an increase in targets. I'm fine rolling out Noah Fant over Kerryon Johnson. Drew Brees or Josh Allen, it's Josh Allen for me. Melvin Gordon, I have Josh Allen at QB4 this week, guys. So especially in this matchup, I love Josh Allen. Melvin Gordon or Devin Singletary, I will roll with Gordon. Singletary is at RB. I talked about this with Dan on Friday's podcast. Singletary is at RB 35 in my rankings right now. I have Melvin Gordon at RB 22. So I think we just need to say Melvin Gordon and all the buzz around him and Philip Lindsay and his workload and all this stuff, we just need to take it into account, yes, but we don't need to factor it in so much that he plummets down our rankings, right? He's still going to be a fine RB2 option. He should get enough work in this matchup to return that value. And Singletary comes with, he doesn't come with scoring upside. He has to score from breaking a big play. All his work is going to happen in between the 20s, and Zack Moss will come onto the field in the red zone as far as to take that scoring opportunities there from Devin Singletary. So I will go with Gordon there. Nick Chubb or Boston Scott in a full PPR, it's still Nick Chubb. Boston Scott, of course, in a full PPR gets a little bit of a bump, but I'm still rolling out Nick Chubb and his guaranteed workload. James White or Tariq Cohen for the flex in a half PPR. I'm going Tariq Cohen here. With James White, I said earlier on this week that I just kind of want to see, does Cam Newton lean on him? Who does Cam Newton trust? That's really it. Who does Cam Newton trust? Who gets the ball? I expect it to be Julian Edelman, of course, but could it be N'Keal Harry? Could it be a Damiere Byrd, Jacoby Myers? Does James White get the target workload that he did with Tom Brady behind center, or does Cam Newton look to run the ball more? Is this offense going to look anything like we've seen in previous seasons? I actually don't think so. I think we're going to see a completely different version of the New England Patriots offense with Cam Newton back behind center, which could take James White off the field, right? You don't have to lean on him as much. So there's concern there. I will roll with Tariq Cohen, especially in this matchup. Tyler Boyd or Calvin Ridley in the flex. I'm going with Calvin Ridley here. I've been high on Calvin Ridley all offseason, so I like Tyler Boyd as well. But Calvin Ridley in this game, again, a game that Atlanta's going to have to throw the ball in, and especially when you factor in that Julio Jones, even though he's limited, Julio Jones is always limited going into a game. He's lining up against Shaquille Griffin, and then Calvin Ridley should draw coverage from Quentin Dunbar, and Calvin Ridley's going to roast him. So I love Calvin Ridley in this matchup. AJ Green, Zack Moss, or Leonard Fournette in a half PPR format. Not excited about any of those particularly, but I will roll with Zack Moss, actually. I think he has the most potential to score. I want to see AJ Green on the field. This was one of the things with David Johnson. I said to sit David Johnson this week, or I had him just outside RB2. I had him at RB25 in my rankings. So going back to the Thursday night game, it was what version of David Johnson are we going to get on the field? Can he produce in this matchup? Absolutely, but you have to play the percentage chances. With AJ Green, can he produce in this matchup? Absolutely, but play the percentage chances. What is the chance that AJ Green comes onto the field after not playing since week 9 or 11 in 2018? Okay, we haven't seen AJ Green on the field for a full year and a half. So we just have to say, can he go off in this matchup? Sure, but it's tough corners that he's playing against, and you have to play the percentage chances. So Zack Moss against this Jets run defense, who they lost some pieces. CJ Mosley, of course, opting out for the season. Jamal Adams, who was a big part of them being at least a decent run unit last year, he's gone. So Zack Moss has scoring upside in this matchup. I will roll with Zack Moss. Full PPR, you need 2 wide receivers, Terry McLaurin, DK Metcalf, Marvin Jones, or Deante Johnson. Metcalf is my automatic start there. Jones pushes wide receiver 24 value in my rankings. Deonte Johnson, I talked about him at wide receiver 26. Even though I have concerns about McLaurin being shadowed by Darius Slay, I still have him as a top 20 option. I have Metcalf at wide receiver 15 and McLaurin at 17. So in this situation, I'm going to lean on my rankings, guys. I'm going to go with McLaurin and Metcalf. David Montgomery or Marquise Brown or Jerry Jeudy. Okay, so it all depends on what you need. Do you need the big blow-up performance? Because Marquise Brown can absolutely deliver that. If he scores a touchdown, you're going to be happy that you started him. David Montgomery comes with a safe floor as long as he gets his workload, right? I love plugging in David Montgomery as a flex option this week because 15 carries, 12 to 15 carries, and the potential to score against this Lions defense. He should see 4 to 5 targets in the passing game. I think he comes with a safe floor. So, however, I just don't know if he hits as big of a blow-up performance as Marquise Brown could. Jerry Jeudy all hinges on Cortland Sutton. If you get to the Monday night game and Cortland Sutton, gets an injection like Dr. David Chow was talking about on Friday's podcast, and he is able to play, then Judy's upside disappears. So I don't know if I want to play that game of waiting until Monday night to figure out if I'm going to have Jerry Jeudy be this big, blow-up performance. So all depends on what you need. If you need stability in your flex, then I will go with David Montgomery. If you need the big blow-up performance and you can afford to take that shot, then I will go with Marquise Brown. We're going to roll through some of these guys. 7 minutes left before kickoff. Half PPR, John Brown or Sterling Shepard. I don't like either of them. I will go with John Brown, though, because I think he can take one big play against these Jets corners to the house. Again, Sterling Shepard, I'm not really looking to start any of these Giants wide receivers until I get clarity on what their roles look like, where the targets go. Hayden Hurst, Marlon Mack, or Preston Williams at flex PPR. Preston Williams is moving up my rankings with the Devontae Parker news that he is playing and should draw coverage from Stephon Gilmore. I think the ball has to go somewhere. Williams apparently is fully healthy. Man, that's super close. It's between Hayden Hurst or Preston Williams for me. I'm more comfortable rolling out Preston Williams. You stumped me. Okay, I'm just going to say that right now. You stumped me. I will go with Preston Williams, though, because I just want to move. I need to move through these questions. If it were me and I was choosing between Hayden Hurst or Preston Williams, I'd be starting Preston Williams. Devontae Parker, Marvin Jones, or Anthony Miller in full PPR. Marvin Jones, I think, has a safer floor from his target volume perspective. I have Jones above Miller in full PPR. Tyler Lockett or Cooper Kupp in a standard format, I will go with Lockett there. In a flex, James White or Hollywood Brown. Again, kind of the same conversation with the David Montgomery. It all depends on what you need. If you need that stability, especially in a full PPR, James White is a low-end RB3, RB4 option for me this week. I'm fine rolling out Hollywood Brown because he does come with this huge blow-up upside. Am I crazy to be worried about Nick Chubb this week? Yeah. I mean, it all depends on what you're expecting. I have Nick Chubb at RB17 in my rankings right now off the top of my head. I'm pulling it up. RB15, excuse me. So he moved up. I did have him at 17 at one point. This is not a great matchup. And then you do have the concerns about Kareem Hunt. These were always the concerns going into this draft season was if you're drafting Nick Chubb as a top 10 option, you have to be concerned. And because of Kareem Hunt's involvement. So in this matchup, I'm not super crazy about Nick Chubb, but you still need to roll him out as an RB2, and you can expect that value. Don't be expecting top 5 upside. Jared Goff or Aaron Rodgers, I'm not looking at Goff against this defense. Even though it should be a shootout, I still expect Goff to turn the ball over a couple times. I will go with Aaron Rodgers there. Tom Brady or Big Ben. I have Big Ben at QB 10, like I said earlier, and Tom Brady at quarterback 13. I will roll with Big Ben. 5 minutes left. Todd Gurley or Jonathan Taylor in a standard format. I'm going with Gurley. He doesn't come with the question marks that Jonathan Taylor does. As long as Gurley is healthy, he will absolutely return borderline RB1 value in this offense. AJ Green or Cortland Sutton. I think you need to prepare, especially with Cortland Sutton being the Monday night game. I think you need to prepare to be without Cortland Sutton this week. Even if he plays, I'm not super excited about starting him. So I do think you need to go with AJ Green. Although I just finished talking about him. I'm not super excited about starting AJ Green either. Half PPR, Robert Woods or Stephon Diggs. That's Robert Woods. Excuse me, my voice is absolutely going. Running back to Le'Veon Bell or Mark Ingram. I think you can start in a full PPR. I think you can start Le'Veon Bell. I have Bell at RB17 in my rankings last time I checked, and then I mentioned that I did have, yes, and then Mark Ingram at RB20. So it's close, but Bell, I don't think he scores, but he can absolutely finish with 9 to 10 targets in this game because they are going to be trailing and they need help. Chris Thompson. There we go. Chris Thompson, Sony Michel, or Desean Jackson in standard flex. Goodness gracious, guys. Desean Jackson, start him everywhere you got, especially when you're talking about those other options. Desean Jackson is the clear option. As long as Desean Jackson is healthy, he belongs in your starting lineup no matter what. As a flex option, that was why I loved targeting Desean Jackson everywhere in drafts this year. Marlon Mack or Ronald Jones. Gross. Marlon Mack is going to be the one that I roll with there because I think he gets more involvement against a better matchup. If Jones scores, my answer here could look foolish, but against this defense and with Fournette behind him, I don't know if that's a guarantee. So Mack, I think, is going to be fine from a touch perspective. I think you can roll him out as a flex option, but again, temper your expectations. How safe is Alvin Kamara today? He's got the contract underneath him now. Of course, there are still the lingering potential concerns about the epidural and what he had done a couple weeks ago, but it's Alvin Kamara. You start him, especially in this matchup and how Kamara has the potential to score multiple times in this game. He's a top 5 option for me this week. I have him at RB4. All right, last question here, guys. Full PPR, Jerry Jeudy or N'Keal Harry? I will roll with Jerry Jeudy no matter what. Even if Cortland Sutton does play or doesn't play, I will still roll out Jerry Jeudy here because I think that he has a safer floor and he comes with a more guaranteed workload than N'Keal Harry. Again, I mentioned it with Cam Newton. I just want to see who he trusts. I want to see the players that he targets here because, again, this is a new offense. We just don't know what it's going to look like here. So I want to take a wait-and-see approach with N'Keal Harry. All right. We are 1 minute away from kickoff. I am jumping out of here, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for the last hour, for hanging out with Tags the hour before that, for hanging out with Dan Harris the hour before that over on Instagram. Hopefully you feel like we did our jobs well and that we made sure that you are well covered for your start-sit decisions. Guys, enjoy football. We have football back after the craziness that has been going on this entire year. We have some stability. We have some sense of normalcy with multiple games of football on the TV. So I'm going to let you get out of here. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go sit on my couch. I'm going to crack open a beer. Yes, at 1 p.m. Yeah, I'm doing that. And I'm going to watch some football. So guys, thank you so much for joining me today. Again, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel here, like this video, and then again, you can find and follow me on Twitter at Kyle Yates NFL. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next time.